closet.
Okay, I think that I don't hear that you're live anymore, but I think we are.
I don't know if I have to push it because I got in first, but in 3, 2, 1, take it away, Marnie.
All right, welcome to Game On, X's and O's for Life's Playbook. We're so excited to be here. I'm Marnie Schneider, and
good morning. It's morning for us, at least. I am Katie Clark. We're so happy that you're with us today. We really want to be cheering you on through Life's Playbook with our realities, right, that we're always sharing about in our 4 quarters. So make sure that you're following us on Instagram to kind of see more of that, so that way you can interact. And we are at Game On XOTV. Go find us there.
Yes, excellent. I know. I really love our show, Katie, because I always say, I learn a lot, and I love being able to learn a lot and then share the information and get feedback from our listeners and our viewers. And I really do believe that we can be the cheerleaders for those that want to listen in and that are listening in. And then again, it's the X's and O's for Life's Playbook, because what's better than X's and O's?
Well, and this is a little bit organized coffee talk between you and I. I mean, we have our 4 quarters and each one has a topic that we talk about. But if you and I were just grabbing a coffee, and just like last week, you were telling me about your red light therapy blanket, I would ask you questions. I mean, this is what women do when we drink coffee, right? We're like, ooh, really? And we interrupt each other and we're like, no, tell me more. And I even told my hubby, he's like, what should I get you for Valentine's Day? And look, we're blessed. I don't need more jewelry. I don't need more stuff. I don't need more shoes. But I was like, ooh, red light therapy blanket. I mean, so It's inspiring, and I want to be more healthy, and I want to, learn more about football from just being with you. And so again, this is coffee talk between 2 ladies who actually care about people, care about where others are going. And I think that's a huge difference, and we're learning to figure out how to care for ourselves, which I was telling you right before we jumped on today. This morning, my husband's gone. I have no more kids in the house. This new stage of life for me. I love my bed. We just got this new bed, new sheets, because we just got married. And honestly, I'm laying in bed going, I want to sleep in. Oh no, I should get up. I want to sleep in. I should get up. And I like a warm wake up, meaning I like the sun coming in. I like to sit and think about my dream. I like to practice my breathing. I don't like this, you remember those old school alarms that you had to hit?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now you could just bring the alarm in and sleep next to it and keep turning it off dangerously. But I was struggling with, should I get up? I should get up. Nobody's here. My day is not packed out. I don't have a timeline. But man, it was hard to be kind to me in all of that element.
And, I feel like I totally get that. And I think as when we're parents and we're busy and we're trying to constantly create, a life for everybody, that we forget about ourselves. And that seems so selfish to take care of yourself. And even last night I was like, why do I do some of the stuff that I do? And I'm like, all right, well, I like to do it. I like to be thoughtful, and I like to do all those things. That's kind of my currency, and it's yours too. We trade in being thoughtful. And but sometimes we have to remember, be thoughtful to ourselves. Go and just lie there for a few extra minutes and enjoy the quiet and the silence, and enjoy the fact that you have a beautiful new bed and linens. And I love sheets. Oh my gosh, my kids tease me. They're like, Mom, you are obsessed with sheets. I'm like, I like linens. I like
bedding. Sheets a lot. It's a lot of hours of your life in good sheets. Good sheets matter.
Good sheets matter. They do. And it's and finding the right ones that actually don't, that don't make you sweat at night or whatever it is. Certain things, just nice linen is such a luxury. And when you go to a hotel, you're just this is so cozy. I want to enjoy and embrace all that. And we're allowed to, by the way, we're allowed to.
But that's hard to receive, and it's hard to believe sometimes, because I am such a goer. You're kind of you're a goer. And, I do on vacation. But then on vacation, I'm almost upset because, the sun was out. I should have been up. I should have worked out in the morning. I do these should have early, that it's okay to be okay. It's okay to be okay. And that phrase is such a health and wellness phrase that I even have a hard time incorporating. It's okay. It's okay, Katie. Rather than listening to other small voice that's saying, no, it's not. What is that small voice?
It's interesting. And so when you ask somebody, here's the thing. It's if you were to ask somebody if they're okay, all right, and we ask
Mm,
people all the time, like, hey, are you okay? Like, what can I do for you? And now I'm trying to be like, I'm asking myself, like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm okay, sure. Like, um, we're all okay. I mean,
right.
yes. But it's like, well, what do I need to do? Like, as though I'm not me. Like, what do I need to do to make you better? Okay. And then either you figure it out, you write it down, you do that, you do those things the same way that you would ask a friend, what do they need to do to,
Right.
to make it better. All right, wait a minute. This is very strange. I just got like my yellow light went on and it says go live. Are you live on your thing?
I'm live on mine, babe. So
So you
no,
think
no,
we're okay?
now it says, oh, it says go live.
Yeah,
Were we not live? But I pushed go live.
I did too.
That's
Should I
interesting.
try it? I mean, well, should we?
Look it again.
Okay. Yeah,
Well,
I just hit it again. So,
it doesn't. Does it
we'll be
say?
okay.
Does it say?
I
I'm
see,
in it too.
well, it doesn't, I see the purple lines
Yeah,
moving.
I see it too.
Okay. So we'll just keep talking.
Yeah, man, the effort we put into
Try to
this.
stop us. Try to stop us. I mean, we
Right. It's okay.
right. And so I think that like it's okay. And the other thing is like that you also when you do ask people if they're okay, now, I mean, maybe that's like maybe I need to figure out a better phrase for that. Like,
Right.
because it's just too loose. It's too open ended. Like, I can
Yeah.
ask myself that, but it's a little bit too loose. So, what would we ask somebody if we were curious? Like, hey, it looks like you're a little frustrated or a little, that the house is a little messy or whatever it is. Like, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like, how do you phrase that with somebody? What would you
You
do?
know, it's interesting. I think kind of the way you started wording it, maybe if you gave them space to say it's not okay, like, hey, you don't seem okay.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to say you don't seem rather than are you okay? Because then we're all feel, especially women, we feel compelled to like make everybody happy and say, oh, I'm fine. But hey, you don't seem fine. Am I seeing this right? Like
Yeah.
maybe showing them what you're seeing just brings truth to like, you know what, I'm not fine. It's easier to say I'm not fine than it is to say no, I'm fine. No, I'm
Right.
not fine in the form of the question. Here's another thing, and we do this in sales. It's interesting when we're trying to close a client, we actually ask the question on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you of, moving forward with our matchmaking? And maybe that, I had a girlfriend, she and her husband were going through counseling, and the counselor said, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your marriage at? And he said 8. She said 2. Again, it's that
That's a big
discrepancy.
gap.
Girl, on a scale of 1 to 10, how okay are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how upset are you? I mean, that's the scale of 1 to 10 is helpful because even, and I've seen those, I have one of those charts that helps you describe your feelings right now. I mean, sometimes I kind of hate that stuff. Like, I don't even want to deal with that. That's a lot of effort. I guess if I'm in a therapy session and I'm really having to go deep, but if you're in the middle of something, I guess it'd be safe to ask someone, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are we at? On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling towards me? I don't know. What do you think of that?
I think that, that's really another piece of great advice. Like in a hospital, I think that like they have that, like the pain chart, like on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain? And so that is something that, um, and then the other side of me is um, like the old school, old fashioned part of me is like, are we this like, is this really where we are in this day and age? Like we have to like take everyone's temperature all the time to see how they are and what they're doing and whatever else. And like grown adults, like often, like we're supposed to be able to kind of self moderate and take care of ourselves too. So it's a delicate balance, but I guess that's just what life is.
Well, I think the scale that you bring up in the hospitals, let's be honest, that's all up for interpretation because we know that if a man's in a hospital, he's going to be like, I'm an 8. Where a woman for the same pain and the same injury probably would be like, I'm a 6. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
sorry,
like
guys.
I always, yeah, like if my limbs are hanging off and I'm like, oh, I'm like, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
hopefully that'll never be the case, but I'm like, I'm fine. Just let's go. Come on. We got to
which
go. We got to get you to whatever you need
actually,
to do.
yeah, which really brings into, we were going to be talking about this later in the day, but, talks about again, that interpretation of in forgiveness and moving forward with somebody, like, well, I'm okay, you're okay, but we're not okay. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit later too. So I just think it's, thank you this morning just for that encouragement of it's okay, Katie. And I hated that I even wasted the brain space going like, should I sleep in? I'll sleep in a little bit more. Like, do it. You can't do it. You can't do it every day. But the days that I can, I want to. And I'm going to say my favorite sheets, since we were just talking about sheets, has nothing to do with health and wellness, except for that you don't sweat as much. I buy the bamboo sheets. I think it's called Cariloha or something like that. Cariloha. I'll tell you what, they're a little wrinkly because they're bamboo or whatever, but my absolute most favorite sheets I've ever had in my life. I finally found them at this age and stage because I could afford them. And they're still pretty affordable, but they were just selling them at Costco too. But I'm telling you, those are my favorite sheets. I'm curious, what are your favorite sheets?
Well, I am a little bit of a throwback to the Italian linen. So, Frette is still my favorite brand. And that is very pampered and definitely, but I treasure them. Like I would rather have a couple good pillows and a good set of sheets than a piece of jewelry. So I mean, it's just because it's like I like jewelry, I do, but like getting into bed and having like that experience of it really does make me feel. It really makes me feel good, and I feel like my kids are always like jumping in my bed because they want to experience the good sheets and the good pillows.
Hey, whatever brings for one more last snuggle hug, man. I love it. Yeah. Yes. All right. You were sharing with me before. We're going to be moving on to the second quarter here where we just talk about lifestyle, and we're going to be bringing up some books today. So this is such an interesting story. I have to share one thing. You told me that you got this random book randomly in the mail. One time, this is a crazy little story. And I had written in this manifestation book in the beginning of the year that I wanted to go snowshoeing. I'm not a big skier. I'm not a big like hang out in the snow kind of person, but I thought on a pretty day, wouldn't it be pretty to go snowshoeing? So believe it or not, early in January of that month that I had written that down, I got a pair of pink snowshoes in the mail. I have zero idea who it came from. Not very many people knew I wanted to go snowshoeing. I don't even know if anybody knew I wanted to go snowshoeing. It was not in my Amazon cart. My children did not purchase it in my Amazon. They were befuddled just like me. Like, where did this come from? But it was crazy how I got pink snowshoes, and I've used them, and I still to this day have no idea how I got them. But tell us about your story.
All right. So I yesterday went to the mailbox, and there was a padded envelope, and I opened it up, and I was like, it was from a Dallas. The address was a Dallas, Texas address, but that's like the bookstore where it came from or whatever, or something like that. And it's like it's this old book called The World of Serendipity. Discover the secret power of your seven sense. And I was like, and there was no note in it. And the book is old. It's from the 80s. I think the first published date was, oh my gosh, 1970. So that's really old. Yeah. And I mean, that's like almost as old as me, practically, and wow. So I don't know. And it's like just so interesting. And I was looking at it and I was like, I can't wait to start reading it. Basically, it's like about this power of serendipity and like allowing things. That's kind of like the same thing with manifesting and what you were talking about and all of this stuff. Like, but serendipity to me happens when you keep doing things and you're out there and you're making things happen and you're providing for others and you're doing positive things in the universe. I feel like that's my definition of serendipity. And then positive collisions happen. So like stars collide and serendipity happens.
Right. Well, and there used to be a dessert shop called Serendipity.
There was a movie called Serendipity.
Right. And I think there's both. And serendipity is when it like randomly happens, but it was meant to be. So it wasn't random. There's nothing random about what happens in your life. I do believe God orchestrates things. Yeah. There's another great word called kismet. It's another fabulous word. In the line of business, what I have, in matchmaking and creating relationships, I love it when things are kismet, serendipitous. It's such a fun word. And we're talking about books, and you were saying that someone had written in the book, and there was notes in the book.
Yeah, there's notes. Like somebody had studied this book. I mean, like I was looking through it, and like things were underlined and highlighted. I mean, here, like little notes, like this, like chance day 72, 88. Like, is that numbers? I don't know. It's so crazy.
I love it. I used to give I used to have tons and tons and tons of cookbooks because I used to be Fit Chef Katie. I had a million cookbooks, and I realized I had to get rid of them because I moved a lot. So I used to give away cookbooks that I had written in. And anytime I lend out my cookbooks, I used to tell people, if you're going to do a recipe, write on the recipe. I want to see what your thoughts were. So I always have a highlighter. I've got multiple highlighters right here, pink, yellow, and then I'm always a writer in my books. As a matter of fact, I was on an airplane once and someone said, "Oh, are you an editor?" I said, "No, it's the last thing. Don't ask me to check your punctuation." But I wanted to share my favorite book. And this is a book a girlfriend had mentioned, and it's literally from 1870. This woman lived from 1871 to 1940. She was an American artist and illustrator. And you can listen to her also. You can listen. She's got like someone created a podcast of some sort with her affirmations on there. And it's called The Game of Life and How to Play It. I mean, it's all messed up. I got watermarks on here, but I'm all about the writing, taking notes in there. I mean, here's a good page. This is how I read, right? Old school pen to paper, really, really connecting with that. And I found that books, I always give away my favorite book, my current favorite book, or one of my old school books as a going away gift. I just had a Galentine's this weekend. And so I'm doing this 90-day book on like, just, every morning a 90-day encouragement, like dream bigger. And so I gave everybody that book. I always give like lip glosses, girly stuff. But it's kind of nice to go back to the books.
It is.
I'm talking with someone about writing a book, and I said, should I write a real book? Because of course I want a real book, but it's a lot cheaper to write just an ebook. And she said, don't do an ebook. It's just, there's something about this. And I said, good, I'm in, so books, let's bring it back to the old school, right? You get it. Kids, books. Let's be touching things, not looking at screens all day,
It's exactly. And that's like, I actually even like struggle between, all the interactive, game stuff, gamification of game day of, my book and my book series and so forth versus like, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do books. And I want people to know that like they can pick something up, they can take it with them. The kids reading it over and over again and keeping it in their bookshelf and looking at it is so different than like just having it on. I mean, eventually we're going to have to do all the technology part of it, but there is something, again, I've received a lot of emails and from people and so forth, but like getting a book in the mail, like that was something just so cool. And,
right.
And neat. That like, okay, now, I've got a doctor's appointment later. I'm going to bring my book with me and like read it while I'm in the waiting room. And it's going to be wonderful that I'm not going to be sitting there, squinting on my iPhone as I'm looking at stuff. I'm going to sit there and, I'll bring my reading glasses and read my book.
Yeah. Now you look like extra smart. You're like one of those extra smart people that actually reads a book. And my son, he's so smart. He said, Mom, I should either be an ophthalmologist or, like a carpal tunnel doctor, because everybody on their phone is going to have eye problems and total hand problems.
Yes.
And he's 100% correct. Let's bring back the old school pen to paper books, right? I love
it. Yes, I am all for it. And the thing is, it's like, I mean, okay, anytime you read something, that's a good thing. So like, okay, bravo, wherever you're reading stuff, like we're going to be happy and cheerlead for you. But there is something very special about holding this. And I think that like, that you remember it better. It's like, you actually have to sit there. I mean, there's something kind of, it really does mean something. So reading books, whatever they are, obviously Football Freddy books, I'm a big fan of too. So
big fan. This is so funny and cute, creative, really great. I mean, my husband and I, we do try to do reading time where he just needs more time to read. And so he's like, can we just read tonight? We just not talk? And can you give me some space to read? And I'm like, but really it's good for both of us. Gives him time to kind of bring it down from being so busy at work. Then, I mean, he gets this all day at work. So even though I want to do this too, I have to give him some space and time to read. So let's bring back the old school reading, and then let us know what you think of that book.
Yes, I will definitely do that. I'm planning on reading. I'm going to like challenge myself to read, at least a chapter a day. So by next week, yeah.
You get it.
I'll be on a plane. All right. So next week, we might have to do our show on Tuesday. Yeah, on Tuesday, because next Wednesday I will be heading off to Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. But we'll talk about that in the final segment. But yeah, so that's fun. I'm looking forward to it. That's always kind of a fun, like class reunion kind of weekend. That's what it reminds me of.
Well, I can say this, that I love reading on a plane because I'm stuck and I can't do 1,000 things, because here I get very distracted. But I tell you, I'm always the lady whose light's on and everybody else's light is off. And so even my daughter's like, Mom, can you use your cell phone light, please? So, it's like, it's the middle of the day. Why is everybody taking a nap? We can all be reading, but
I know that's the thing, right? Like, who's sleeping in the middle of the day? Like, I mean,
this isn't an overnight flight, guys. This is a 3-hour flight. Y'all got to be taking a nap. So, really, what were you so busy with? But well, let's talk about. We were discussing relationships, and that's what I do. I'm a matchmaker. I help curate relationships, and I usually do beginning stuff. The thing is my specialty is 3 weeks, I always say 3 dates, 3 weeks, 3 months. Like, I'm not a whole relationship expert because that's bigger, deeper issues. But you were sharing some deeper stuff, and we were talking about forgiveness, and then like stonewalling, and like let's share with people about stonewalling because it's a really big deal. As a matter of fact, I broke up with my current husband one time because of it.
So I think that's like, and I'm glad that you guys were able to, and everybody has their own version of like what works for them. But I think stonewalling is such a painful thing for most people because it's like, and I understand, some people don't want to talk about certain things at certain times or whatever. But if you're a sensitive, normal person, you're going to kind of be able to read the tea leaves a little bit and then still have the understanding that, like, you know what, if they're sensitive to you, they're going to want to talk about it and not stonewall. So it has to be both sides coming together. And if somebody's stonewalling you and they continuously do that, that's probably not a person that they're not that they're a bad person, but it might not be the right fit for you because they don't understand the level that you want, of who you are. And it can be pretty toxic, actually.
Right. Well, and if you've never followed the Gottmans, I highly encourage following the Gottmans. It's a couple that they study couples, and they've been doing it for decades. So they really can see what works and what doesn't work in healthy relationships. And they claim that they can, by watching you interact with your spouse, your partner, whoever, they can decide if you're going to last or if you're not. They have a 95% accuracy rate on letting you know, yes, you're going to go the distance, or no, you're not, which is crazy. Wow. And they have something called the 4 horsemen. And I forget what all 4 are, but you can Google it, Gottman's 4 horsemen. But one of them is definitely stonewalling. And so what stonewalling is, it's the refusal to communicate. There you go. It's pretty simple. When my husband and I at the time were going through some stonewalling, I used to call him Silent Sammy. I'm like, okay, what are you, 3rd grade Silent Sammy, which is not the best technique in communication. So making fun of him was not good, but I couldn't express to him like, okay, this is stonewalling. Like, that probably wouldn't have helped either, but he would just go silent on me. And it was, they would say that some people get flooded with, this is too much. I don't know how to go, this woman is too much right now, or all of these feelings and emotions are too much for me to handle, process. But here was the thing is I literally broke up with him. It was a New Year's Eve. For an hour, he didn't talk to me. We had a little frustration about, I wanted to go out. He wanted to go home. Okay. So we could have walked through it, talked through it. His friend invited us out, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. And he's like, I don't want to, I want to go home. So we made the decision, and I was like, excuse me, there's 2 of us. You don't just make the decision. And so we're at a nice steak dinner, and then he got silent. And then I played the like, well, okay, if you're going to be mean, I'm going to be mean back, right? You're going to be silent. I'm going to stop talking, because I'm not going to be the one who carries the conversation, even though I absolutely could. And I just keep talking and getting frustrated. That kind of riles me up. And instead of him saying something so healthy, and he didn't know how to do this then, like, hey, babe, that frustrated me. Can we talk about this in 10 minutes from now? Or can we talk about this after dinner when we get in the car? Hey, babe, I need an hour to work through these emotions. So we've learned that I understand he gets flooded. He gets overwhelmed. Decision, indecision, you get flooded by that too. But he now has to say, hey, babe, this is a lot for me right now. But he always has to give me a time when we are going to come back to it. He can't just silence himself and walk away. That is not okay. So our solution is that, hey, babe, I need a minute. And even I've done this with my kids now. I'm like, okay, you guys are bugging me. I need a minute. Like, on vacation with my kids, sometimes I feel like they're yapping and complaining. And I'm like, my stress level is high right now. I'm going to take a walk. I'll be right back. But I need a minute away from you. Like, I love you, but I need a minute away from you to control myself. And so I don't want to stonewall my kids and be that silent kind of rude mom, because they feel that. They're like, oh gosh, mom's upset. I let them know feelings are high. I'm ready to like squeeze some necks around you, lovely children of mine. And my kids are mini adults, so they get the humor in that. But I just need a minute. So always communicating how long that minute will look, I think is a fair way to say, okay, I'm ready and willing to listen to you now. What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, and my mom would always say, like, get an egg timer and set an egg timer because if it goes too long, then it's like, then I mean, this is just human nature. It kind of festers and it gets yucky. But if you have an egg timer and you're like, okay, we're going to set the egg timer or whatever, those sandy things, and after 20 minutes or 10 minutes, and the other thing is that, like, if it really is a healthy relationship, then talk about it for the same amount of time, like 10 minutes on the egg timer. After that, like, let it go. And if it's still really bothering you, then you have to figure out what was what was hurtful in that. And there's all different levels of hurt. And your partner has to be understanding enough to know that, like, you know what? You might need a little bit more time in this one. It's a sliding scale with everything, with every relationship, personal, business, platonic, whatever, romantic. It's always a sliding scale. So just kind of work within the parameters of, like, the egg timer, and then you can kind of modify it a little bit based on that. That's what I try to do with my kids and with other, with anything I have going on.
Well, and I always ask myself, so let's say he's kind of stonewalling and maybe I need to lead in that. Hey, sweetie, like, I see you're kind of like breaking off and you don't want to talk about this. How about we do 30 minutes from now? So it's okay for you to be the one who gives them that invitation.
Right.
So during that 30 minutes, though, I've learned, because I'm highly emotional and I have a lot going on inside, I actually have to take pen to paper and I start to just write, like, and I ask myself, what is really the deeper issue?
Yeah.
Because the issue is not really the issue. And so what's the deeper issue? Was there a trigger? Was something else from my past? Like, oh, I used to feel my ex-husband would always make the call and then I was silent, Katie.
Yeah.
So is that like he made the call and I felt like I lost my voice? Maybe that was really my issue. So when I come back with him, and I always try to do this with men because I feel like we women can kind of overwhelm men. I always have only 3 bullet points with guys. Like, ladies, I understand you have a lot of emotions, but you can't let your emotions lead you. You have to lead with clarity. You have to lead with wisdom. You have to lead with straight truths to this man, because that's the way he's going to process, and that's fair. And it's actually, I think it's really healthy for women to get really clear about what it was. So I always come back. I have 3 bullet points. I try not to rabbit trail and talk about 7 other things that might be frustrating me, but just 3. And then I always have in those 3 is a solution. Hey, babe, next time when you want to make the decision, can we, like, whatever it is, like, this would really work for me a little bit better next time. How do you feel about that?
Well, and my grandfather would always say, if there's no solution, there's no problem.
Okay.
So that's really smart, like having a solution. And if there is no solution, like in whatever it is, like, oh, the solution is we're going to do this, this, and this, or the solution is we, need to take time away from whatever the solution is. But if there's no solution, then there's probably no problem. But, and I always like that, that theory, or that kind of that thought, because it's like in math, there's a problem and you solve it and whatever else. And so it makes it so that, like, okay, I'm going to solve this problem. And, but the thing is also that traditionally men are, really the problem solvers, or whatever, like they like to fancy themselves as the problem solvers. They do. So it's almost like they do. But we, Katie, the 2 of us we've had to be problem solvers our whole entire lives. Like, no matter what, we've had to figure out how to get something done and do it. So solve the problem. So I think that, like, finding a way to, like, even making it seem like, it's a joint solution, that's probably a healthy thing as well. Yeah.
I used to say, my coin phrase with my kids was, what's the creative solution? What is the creative solution? Like, it doesn't have to look like you think it has to look. There could be a better way to do it. And look, I've heard this before: men run the world, but women run the universe. And I kind of think we do, in the best of ways, because the way we nurture men, the way that we care about the people around us, really does create the ecosystem over, we're the bigger ecosystem over this smaller world. And so it is important that we get deeper and go, what is the creative solution to this problem, and really start to process things. And I really
think that, oh wait, sorry, I was just going to ask a question about stonewalling. Do you think stonewalling is all, like, about fear of abandonment, isn't it?
I'm sure it's fear of a lot of things. It's fear of I mean, if I were to stonewall, it'd probably because this has gone bad before. I don't want it to go bad again. right? So that's not abandonment necessarily. That's like, oh my, for men, for example, I'm in a round 2 marriage. I know that if I start to pull a naggy attitude at him, he's going to do this.
Yep.
Because he had an ex-wife that was naggy, right? We've all been the naggy wife. I mean, I used to be a naggy wife too in my days. I can see it now being older and wiser. So he stonewalls that because I'm moving forward towards nagginess. And so it catches me, but I don't think that's abandonment. I think abandonment could be one reason why people stonewall. It could just be triggers of like last emotional experiences. I mean, I'm sure there's a million reasons of why people stonewall. They don't know how to process emotions. They don't even know what they're feeling. They don't want to feel it. They just don't want to feel it. Like, I don't want to deal with it. Like, you know, my ex-husband used to say, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. I mean, that's stonewalling in itself, even though it's, you know, it's just refusal to communicate. And so it's funny because I've heard my daughter say, okay, mom, we'll talk about it later. Like, I kind of have to laugh because I'm like, yeah, you get what it's like now. And when is the later? The later never happened. So that was a, you know, like he just didn't want to deal with it, you know?
Yeah,
so
just didn't want to deal with it. Yeah. I mean, that's, I know, gosh, you know, as we get older, it's just trying to, just manage people and manage ourselves and just be like, you know what? It's not, ultimately, it's really, nothing's really that big of a deal. It's really not. It's just really not. It's like, okay, just let it go, whatever. I don't even care. Just let it go. As long as it's like not physical or emotional trauma, which, I mean, then just, okay, whatever. It's next. Let's just move on, because it becomes like, otherwise you just get stuck in this like swamp, this quagmire of like that bad pattern of like yuckiness, and no one likes that.
Well, people sweat the small stuff. I mean, the book, don't sweat the small stuff. So some of the bigger stuff is important to really, you know, go through the quagmire and really push through. But the small stuff we make into big stuff, which it's just not good for the soul. Really not.
It's definitely not. All right. So, but football is good for the soul. So we're down to the final quarter. Football is good for the soul. And whether people like her or hate her or whatever, the Travis and Taylor romance is hot and heavy. And I saw a funny meme. It was like, Taylor is making it to the Super Bowl in her first year in the NFL. Like, but like, it was like a funny thing, like, which is like the Dallas Cowboys haven't been there in whatever, like all these years, it just was a funny thing. So, yeah. All right. So Taylor and Travis.
I was pretty bummed. I got to be honest. I was definitely rooting for the Lions because we wanted the Lions to win just because they need it. They've never, you know, it would have been new and fresh. And then also I was rooting for the Ravens. One, I have a past client who does all the analytics for the Ravens. So for that reason, but I got to be honest, I do feel like, call me a conspiracy theorist, but there is a reason why the Kansas City Chiefs had to go there, and Taylor is definitely it. And I'm not a big fan. I feel like publicity, I think publicists get together. I think people start to date each other for publicity. I mean, I got to say, I think A-Rod and J-Lo were a little bit of that genre of like, this is good for the Latino community, this looks good for a season, but we all know A-Rod likes blondes. Hates blondes, so I'm not sure where J-Lo fit the picture, but it was good for the community. So I just feel like they're the next level of that. And I mean, I'm just looking for longevity in relationships. Like, give me some couples that have walked the walk and talked the talk, and let's look at that. Not a huge fan. I did take an Instagram poll. She only got like 30% love. I mean, 70% were like, we're over it. Just play the game, bro. Like, none of this stuff. Like, come on. You know, for the love of football, not Taylor, let's really keep it back to the basics of football. And there's plenty of guys out there that have great, amazing supporting wives, you know, that are doing cool stuff too. So she sings songs about all of her breakups. So, I mean, Travis, you might be the next breakup song. I don't know.
And that's a total possibility. I think that, like, for what it's worth, all right, it's nice to see taking any, you know, I always like to see people being excited about somebody else. So like, that's something that the Taylor stuff and the Travis stuff, all of that, yeah, whatever. And it probably, and the conspiracy theories about the whole thing and all the revenue from, you know, all of the jerseys and everything. It's big, it's real. And so it's hard to dispute that. Like, we know that there's like $300 million that has been poured into the NFL since Taylor and Travis got together.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money. I mean, and it's probably more. And now they're going to the Super Bowl and this and that, and, you know, all these things. But I feel like also the other thing that I will say, like, just again, if we can get kids excited about watching football or being interested in it, and if she's the reason why that's happening, that's cool. It's kind of like, at the end of the day, we're not involved in their relationship, but if it helps getting kids excited about watching something or being involved or wanting to learn something, curiosity is always a good thing. Like if young Swifties are now excited about watching football with their dads or their brothers or whatever, that's good. That's actually very healthy for the family dynamic, to be excited about doing something with your brothers or your dad or your uncle or your grandparents. So I am fully behind all of that. But the romance part of it is like, there's so many great relationships with professional athletes that we haven't seen. I would like to see more. Like, let's see all these great relationships. And there's a lot of them out there.
So. I mean, I love your positive attitude. I love how you're like, yes, bring people to football to watch. I'm just in my relationship, perspective, I'm afraid these girls are going to get fairy tale romance ideas from watching Taylor. That's not life. It's not. I always say life is 80% reality, 20% romance. If that,
well, like, look at The Bachelor, like that show. Like, those are not, I mean, like having a romance like that or whatever. I mean, we've all had, great dates at a time, but it's like, that doesn't sustain a relationship either. All those grandiose moments do not create a real good, strong bond. If anything, like, you need, like, those create the chemistry, but it doesn't create anything else.
Right. So, Kate, moving on to question, who is going to be, do we know yet who is the halftime performer for
Usher. Usher is the halftime performer.
Usher. You said it wrong. It's Usher.
Usher. Okay. Sorry. My bad. Yeah.
Do you think Taylor will be a little bit of that? Do you think they're bringing her in?
They probably would like to, but I don't think she would do that, because she probably wants to get paid or whatever. But who knows? I mean, maybe she.
I need more money than $1 billion. I mean, that's fair. Her time is money.
Right. Exactly. So I think she'll probably just be a total spectator at the game, and watch the whole thing, be involved, see what all that's like. I mean, Taylor really does create a lot of serendipity for herself, and like, that is something that she's been able to do by putting herself out there. And that's really something, again, like her or not, right, people that put themselves out there, I tend to like. I don't necessarily, I know some of her songs or whatever, and I haven't seen her concert, but I've heard it's really good. And so bravo to her. But people that put themselves out there, I'm a fan of.
It's interesting. So even when you speak of that, today I dropped a podcast, and it's like, once a cheater, always a cheater. It's a question mark, not the statement of it.
Right.
And I share a little bit about my life and some cheating that happened in my life. And even with it going out today, I thought, oh boy, here we go. You're going to get the haters, Katie. I mean, I put myself out there.
Yeah.
So I was praying this morning. I'm like, okay, I put myself out there. I shared something very intimate to my life. And someone go roll up and be like, no.
And yeah. And the thing is, like, that's their own problem, because I feel like if you're admitting and you're sharing your stories, your personal stories, that takes a lot of courage and strength. Right. And you've gone through things, we've all gone through things, and we can learn from other people's challenges, and that's like a beautiful thing to be able to do that. And again, putting yourself out there and sharing that stuff is very valuable for a lot of people. And
gotta be authentic. We talked about authenticity. Gotta keep it authentic. So hopefully she'll be authentic in this love for Travis, and we'll see some like little, wedding bells and babies. Maybe. I mean,
why not? I mean,
clock is ticking. I mean, she's 33. I mean, let's go, girl.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. All right. So we have one more show before the big game. So we'll talk next week about predictions and things like that. So
all that stuff.
Yeah. Valentine's, etc. We're kind of pre-Valentining. I'm like in pastel pink. I love your red heart. Yes. Beautiful. Okay. So everybody, Game On, X's and O's, we're your cheerleaders for life's playbook. Where can you find us, Katie?
On Instagram at GameOnXOTV, or send us an email, GameOnXOTV@gmail.com.
Yes. Excellent. And we want everyone to know, like, we're out there cheering for you. Questions, anything you want to know, email us, send us a note on Instagram, and we'll catch you next week.
Next week. Until then, babe. Bye.
Great. Okay, bye. Now let's see if I can end it. Oh.